This video is going to explain how I built this computer. This is now our workstation, our robotics laboratory. So I thought as a good first video, I would teach you how to build a computer for yourself. Welcome to Dream Cloud. We got a very special video today because for the first time, we're actually shooting in our laboratory. We've got a bunch of amazing stuff to show you with robotics. Today, we're going to be starting at the very beginning because we have a 3D printer over here where we're going to be able to print components to build robots. We've got a little tester robot right here. This is one I ordered from a robotics company. We've got a couple of monitors back here. We've got to set this whole place up, but the first thing we need to do is build our computer. So many custom computer builds, PC builds, are going to be for gaming. So if you're following along for that, this is going to be a great computer to build. But what I wanted to focus on is what type of computer you need to build in order to execute robotics projects. So what I did was I wanted a small form factor, and then I made sure that everything would fit onto this motherboard. So when you're starting this project, it's really important that you pick the right motherboard because all of these different attachments, all these different ports on the board are going to be specific to individual components. So for instance, this CPU, this i5 core processor, is compatible with this motherboard. So these two can come together, but that has to be specified. So it's really important that when you're buying all these parts, you make sure that the attachment, the ports in which they fit into, are compatible. So before we actually take this out of the box and build the computer, I want to give you a rundown of all the components I chose, why I chose them, and even show you where you can get them online.
This is the motherboard for our project. This is that Huananzhi H610M Mini-ITX. This is a small form factor, as we were saying. So all the components fit tightly on this motherboard. But as you can see, there's not a lot of room for expansion. This is the ports that are available to you. Right, so typical USB ports, VGA ports. This would be where the RAM is going to go. So this is DDR4, 64 gig dual channel. So this is where both of our RAM sticks are going to go. This is actually where the storage goes. So instead of having a solid state drive that is connected via SATA or SATA, we're going to have this little NVMe compatible storage device. So this is going to be the storage for the computer, and it's going to go right on the motherboard, making it faster. So this is basically the motherboard that we went with. And it's important to realize that this motherboard is compatible with our 12th gen Intel Core series processor. So it's really important that you make sure that the motherboard that you select is compatible with the CPU or the central processing unit, and we made sure that that was compatible with the Intel i5 chip we got. This is the CPU we decided to go with for this project. It's an Intel i5. It's the 12th gen right there, and then the 400 signifies kind of the quality of this one. So the desktop processor, this is a great processor for robotics. This is exactly what we need. We can also get a i7 processor later if we wanted to upgrade this project, but this is going to be fine, and this is where you can get it on Amazon. So this is the RAM for the computer. Just make sure that DDR4 is compatible with the slots on your motherboard. That's basically the only thing you need to worry about here. I actually did get a 2-pack of 8 gig, so we have 16 gig total RAM. And this is kind of, standard if you want to get into what we're doing. I will be upgrading to 32 gig later, but I wanted to make this computer as affordable as possible. So we got 2 8 gig RAM sticks, making a total of 16 gigabytes of RAM for this computer. So this is where you can get them on Amazon. This is the storage card we decided to go with. So this is a solid state drive, but the difference between this and most solid state drives that you would actually mount in the frame of the computer is this clips directly onto the motherboard, making it faster. So that's what this PCIe is, the NVMe style. So this is different from a SATA storage SSD, solid state drive, but you could get that and you just have to mount it differently. So there's two different styles. I believe I could also add some more storage via the SATA ports that come on this motherboard. But for now, this is going to be good for us. I did get a 500 gigabyte storage for this device. This is the power supply for the whole computer. So this converts regular DC power that's coming out of your wall through all of these cables. They're going to power all the different devices, all your fans, your motherboard. They're going to make sure that everything runs smoothly and gets exactly the type of power that it needs. Because these computers, and especially the central processing units, they don't deal with high voltages. They deal with very low voltages. So you kind of need this power supply to convert all that into the correct form of power for your computer. Just make sure that this is compatible, 450 watt right here, to power everything on your computer. This is actually a very small unit. Again, this is a small form factor build, and as you'll see, the case is very small. So I try to minimize the size of the power supply, but making sure that it would, work with our project. So this is the case for the whole computer, and all you have to do is make sure that you get a case that's big enough to fit the form factor of your motherboard. So as long as this case can fit the Mini-ITX, then we're good to go. This is super, super small, so that's why I chose it. I wanted to create a small computer. This is what it'll look like when we're finished. We got LED fans, so it'll look similar to this. But basically this will make it portable. So if we have to move it from one place to another, I can just pick it up and move it. And that's why I chose this case. This is another option you can add to your project. If you're gaming, then you won't need Wi-Fi, but I'm going to be using this computer over Wi-Fi. So you have to get this little Wi-Fi 6 adapter, and this just fits right onto the motherboard. And I'll show you how to do that later. You're going to need to also get these little Wi-Fi antennas. This just screws onto the back of your computer, just extending that little Wi-Fi card out a bit with these little antennas. These are the fans that we're going to put in this computer case to make sure that everything is cool. These are regular 120 millimeter and they're LED lit, so they're going to look great. I bought a couple of these, and then I had to get a smaller one, which is a 90 millimeter, just because this case is very tight. And then all of the fans and all the LEDs are going to be controlled by this LED controller right here. So this makes all of the LED fans remote controllable, and you need this in order to convert power from the power supply to each fan individually. So this is a graphics card. This has a GPU on board, but this also includes fans. So this is just going to clip right into the motherboard. But this is important that we get a nice graphics card, because some of the larger rendering programs we're going to be using are going to require us to have extended GPU capabilities. So this is one of the more affordable options. This is going to be what we need to do with robotics. Obviously, if you're into gaming, this is where you're going to invest a majority of your money. But for us, this graphics card is going to do what we need to do. So this is the keyboard that I got for the project. Obviously, you can buy your own style of keyboard. This is just what I went with. So this is the monitor that we're going to use with this computer, and I actually got two of these Samsung 27-inch. This is going to be great for us to be able to work on multiple programs at the same time. And then both of these monitors are going to be held up by this monitor desk mount. So this is going to clip directly onto the desk, and then it's going to mount to the rear of the monitors, making this a really stable, efficient, high quality build.
So now that we know all of our components and how they fit together, the last thing I want to show you is this. This is going to be our little tool set that allows us to put this whole computer together. So the first thing we should start with is the largest box, which would be our frame, our computer frame, and it comes with some protective padding. That's nice. Plastic bag. All right, and this will have all of our components showing here. So this is our computer case. Let's open it up, and let's take out all the components before we build our motherboard, just in case we need anything. So it comes with these little screws on top. You're gonna have to unscrew these and not lose them. They're kind of tiny. Then the glass just slips open like that. And we do have some packaging inside. So it looks like we have some cables already in here for the motherboard. So these are going to be what plug into the power button and the USB outlet right there. And then all of our other ports are going to come out right there. So that's good. And then inside this bag, we have the handle, so we can set that aside. Over here, we have the power cord. So this is going to go into our power supply. And it also came with these little feet. So we're going to have to put those on so that it stands. It's important to get the case off the ground so that airflow is continuous underneath. And then we have a bunch of mounting screws. So make sure that you don't lose those. So that's how we're going to mount the power supply and the motherboard and all the fans to the case. And it also came with these little screens. These are dust protectors so that the large holes that are on the actual frame, dust particles don't come in and ruin your computer components. So now that we have that figured out, I'm gonna actually put these little screws back in the computer case so we don't lose them. Let me just set this over here. So the first thing we have to do now that we have the case is set up the motherboard. Now it's very important that you discharge static electricity from your body by touching something metallic. So the frame would be a good thing to, they sell little clips you can get, but I'm just gonna remember to touch this frame periodically just to discharge any static that I might have on me. I'm also not moving around a lot. So obviously, you know, static buildup happens when you're walking around carpet. So this is just the panel that's gonna go on the back of the case here when the motherboard is fully installed. Let's make sure we have this the right way. So this panel is going to fit just like that, but it's going to go in once we have the motherboard complete. So this is not an American-made product. We're going to have fun with this. It doesn't look like there's any user manual, but I have done enough research on computers to know how to set this up. So here is the motherboard. This is beautiful. Look at this baby. I'm gonna give you a nice, clean shot of the motherboard. So now that we have our motherboard ready to go, I'm going to grab our CPU here and install it. And I wasn't really sure which order we should do this in, and I didn't prepare a list. So I just went on to AI, ChatGPT, and I asked, you know, I have my motherboard ready, what order should we install this in? So we're gonna install the CPU onto the motherboard, as I thought, but just wanted to double check. So just be careful when you're opening this. It looks like this little flap here opens, and then this whole fan comes out. So this would be an air-cooled CPU. So here is the CPU. You can see it like that, right here. It's a small, little, beautiful Intel Core. And again, like I said, discharge all of this. So the first thing you're gonna do is open this cover here. So the way that you do this is you push the little flap down like that, and then you're gonna lift it open. So this just has a little flap, and then you're gonna pop this guy open just like that, and that plastic thing will actually fly off once you put this CPU in. Now, this is very delicate. You have to be very careful when you're doing this. This is the most crucial part of the whole project, so you really need to pay attention, and you really need to take it slow. But these pins are getting easier and easier to install yourself. So all of these pins are here. They're actually on the board, and then the pins, the There's no pins on the actual CPU. So we have to be really, 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 really careful. Again, discharge any static electricity. Make sure you're all good to go, because you can fry this bad boy if you're not careful. So I'm looking for a little mark. I do see a little arrow right here, and I'm wondering where on this piece is the arrow. It looks like it's in this corner. Okay, so there's a little arrow in the corner of this chip, right? If you look right there, there's this little arrow right there. And you have to make sure that it's aligned with the little arrow on the chip thing. And there's also a little arrow here confirming that on the cap. So look for all these arrows, because you can put this thing in the wrong way, and then basically you're going to break the whole system, or it won't work. And both is bad. So I put the processor on, and honestly, it fits really, really snug. There's barely any wiggle room. So I'm good with that. And I feel that it's all the way down. So that's all you had to do. And then you just shut this little case, right? Making sure to close it gently. And then when you go to push down this whole thing, this plastic bit is gonna pop off. So I'm gonna take this plastic bit off like that. Okay, so that's better. Okay, this is making me nervous now. This is really making me nervous. I really hope I got this right. I guess this is just how it happens, and this is, okay. So I see now. There is quite a bit of torque on this thing, so don't get nervous when you have to apply a strange amount of torque onto this little handle. Everything is just sort of spring loading it, and it fits nicely. So that's the cap. This needs to come off, because that's where we're gonna put the fan. So for this, it looks like this is gonna mount right over the top of the motherboard. So it already has this pasted. That basically is like a contact gel that's going to go from the CPU to the fan. So essentially it's a heat sink, and with a fan already attached to it. So I actually have this printed out. This is a diagram. These pins, all you have to do is just push straight down on them. It goes around all these little pins, and it's not touching anything, so it stays up around the fan. All right, we got that, and it's out of the way of the DDR RAM. So we have our little tool right here. We didn't need it, we just pushed it down, and then to pull it up again, you're gonna have to pop those. Once we have the CPU installed like that, we're gonna put the RAM sticks in next. So these are the DDR4 2 8 gig RAM sticks. Memory cards. So this is RAM. This is random access memory. This allows the whole computer to basically store information, short-term information that it's using right now, on the application that you have open right now. So think about everything is on the hard drive, on the solid state drive, or whatever it is. And then when you click on something, the computer processes all that information, sends it over to the RAM to be stored for you to use it quickly. If you don't save files, the RAM will automatically delete them when you close your program. So this is going to be on this side. Let's turn this a little bit here, and let's plug these in. We have the notch here, should meet the notch there, and I'm gonna slide it in. Okay, so the notch aligns up vertically, and then I'm just gonna make sure that we push this in gently. It looks like we got it. Okay, that was a little uncomfortable, only because I know how delicate these things are, and these chips didn't have little cases. I think most of the chips that you're going to buy, most of the RAM chips that you're going to buy, they're going to have this kind of plastic mount to it, and I see why, because just popping these things in here, they're so delicate. There we go. All right, everything's in now. Success. So now we have both memory cards inserted. So the next thing we're going to do is actually put the storage card on. Because this storage card is actually going to go right onto the motherboard, PCIe and NVMe, as we talked about earlier. Because this is all the storage. So this is think about this as every file on your computer. It's all in here, and it's right on the motherboard, so it's really fast. So the motherboard has a little screw that's gonna hold this end right there, that little segment. And it's got a little heat sink built right into it. Just push it in, like so, and then it's gonna bend down, and that bending action is actually what pushes the metal onto the underside of that. Cinch that down. The storage is just a card that goes right there. So right now, we have the motherboard, which is the entire thing. We've got the CPU in here. Underneath the fan, this is the cooler, it's air cooled. Then we've got the 2 RAM sticks here, and then we've just put our storage on. So you can think of that as most of the components of the computer that you're familiar with already installed. Before we move on, I'm actually gonna install the Wi-Fi 6 card. Beautiful little Wi-Fi chip. The first thing I'm gonna do is turn this over and place it gently on the fan. These screws right here are gonna give us access to that little Wi-Fi area. I'm gonna flip it over just so I can see the actual slots right there. And basically, all I'm going to do is just put this chip in. And I'm just gonna slide it in, just make sure that the grooves are aligned on the port with the chip. It's all ports and chips. So now I've got a Wi-Fi chip on here, and then I just have to put this cover back. But basically, you'll just screw the first one in. And obviously, if you get another motherboard, then this is gonna be slightly different for you. This may be the Mini-ITX Wi-Fi chip setup, but it might be different if you have a different form factor, motherboard form factor. And we're gonna wait till later, but I have these little kind of antenna extenders that are gonna go right on here. So if you look right here, we've got these little plugs that are gonna come out of the computer, and they're gonna stick out of the holes here in the case, and then we'll put these little plugs on them. The next thing we're gonna put on is the graphics card. So this is our graphics card. Be careful with the electrostatic. So again, that's gonna be a thing where you don't wanna build up a lot of static electricity and then just charge it on these components, because like I said, they deal with low voltages. So I'm gonna wanna take that off first. Really good, it looks like it's stuck on there. It is what it is. Not a fan of that. So you can see that now this graphics card has a panel right here. This is the extension port for the motherboard, and it's gonna go right onto the graphics card. So I'm just gonna pull this thing off, which exposes the metal parts on here, which is gonna go right into our graphics card. Obviously, this thing is gonna go this way, because I will tell you how I know that. The wall of the computer is going to be on your ports. So think about that as you're building your computer. The case over here with the hole for all of these ports, that's where your computer is going to sit up against. So this motherboard isn't going to be centered in your panel. It's going to be towards the back. And then depending on the size, all the components are going to be kind of positioned from there. So you can think about this corner as kind of, this top XY coordinate on your case. We know that this is going to have to shoot out to the right because everything to the left of this is, outside of the case. And it lines up with what we wanted to see here. Oh, and then these are for the ports. So all of these little plugs are actually filling your ports, which are available here. And I don't want to just plug this into the motherboard and have it hanging off as we bolt this in. And I think actually we should get the motherboard in the case first. We did get all of these little screws. This is how we're going to mount it. Let's start by putting this motherboard in the computer. The motherboard, as you can see, is on the left hand side of this. If it's flipped around, I'm sorry. But we have these screws right here that are going to fit right into the back of the case. Huge parts of what I recorded had no audio at all. So what I'm going to do is explain to you what I've done so far and just try to make sure that this is included in the video. So what we have here is our power supply, motherboard, everything bolted down, and our graphics card. So hopefully we have all that content in the video and we have audio to it, but I'm going to show you this so far. Because we still have a lot to do, but I just want to make sure that this is covered in the video. Your motherboard's here. This is your CPU mounted on it. Everything's there. We did need to mount this on the side. So if you look at this guy, this is the bracket that came with the motherboard, and it fits up against any case, any computer case. So it's specific to the ports. So we have to push that on there first against the back panel, and then we can put the motherboard up against that and bolt it down to the back of the case here. And then we slide this graphics card in here like this. But first we have to take off these mounting brackets for, specifically this is for the graphics card or any expansion cards that are gonna go into the motherboard, that PCIe 16 pin slot. So that right there is mounted, that's secured. This is all metal. This is all, looks like it's the heat sink. We've got fans on here. Again, we already explained the whole motherboard, so we should be good to go on that. And then what we did was we installed this power supply right here. So essentially what happened was this bracket that's white came with the computer, and then everything that was in black came with this. But we took the bracket that was with the power supply and we put it here, and the power supply is here, and then we have the cases over here with its own bracket. So basically this white bracket was sandwiched in between the power supply bracket and itself, and then everything bolts nicely here. And then the computer case itself came with this cord so that you wouldn't have to run the power cable out of the top of the computer, because this is where the power supply is. Normally the computer supply is probably somewhere back here where you can get to it, but because of the position of everything, they wanted to put a power supply here. So essentially this little power cable runs to the back, allowing you to actually plug it in the rear. So that's everything so far, and I'm just gonna move on from here. So now I need to figure out where all of these wires go. Some of these wires are coming, like this is the power, is going to be on the motherboard, and I'm just going to pull this out. This is going to be our graphics that explains how the whole motherboard is labeled. And this guy right here, it's pretty obvious where he goes. It looks like, yep, it looks like all those things match up. It fits in just like that. So that's super clean, clips into place, give it a little pull. Good to go. Okay, so that's good. That's out of the way. And then what we can do is just kind of push the cables back there so they're not in our way. And then we can start plugging this guy in. Oh, we have the USB. So let's plug this into here. These are the USB cables that go into the front. And then this guy is gonna be our power on. I think this is the power switch. Power switch, okay, cool. So the first two pins, okay, I see it. Awesome. Now I need to know, okay, probably this way. All right, so this is your power switch. So just so you can see up close, that power button is sending power through this little cable. It's like a switch, and that's what's gonna turn on your computer, and right there. So if you look right there, it's the first two on that little guy, and basically that is the same as right there, power switch. See how it's the first two right there on that little diagram? And it's the first two right there. So that's what that is. You kind of want to get all your cables out of the way. There's also this power 8-pin CPU power supply back here. And I believe that's going to be this one right here, because this guy and this guy aren't as complex. These are all complex, meaning you can plug them into a couple things. This guy's gonna wanna go straight in. There's two different things, but they're combined. There's two different 4 pins, but they're all combined into one 8-pin. So the power supply goes there, and then the power interface goes there. So you have the power interface is the main one, and all that is connected, and then the power supply is there. This is going to be for the graphics card, and I believe that this is going to be for another one. So if you wanted to plug in a few, you could do that with this, but we don't have a few, we only have the one. So I'm going to tuck that back here. So now let's look at this LED pack. This is going to be mounted somewhere, and I believe it's magnetic. So let's see if, yeah, perfect. So this is going to go into the sys fan port we got to get this guy right here. So now we've got this whole computer basically put together now. We have everything mounted on to the actual case. And you can see here, if I hold this up, I did a bit of cleaning up when it came to the cables. So the important thing to do if you are putting your computer together is that all of the cables for the fans need to be facing back so that they can be managed behind. As soon as something comes out the front, it becomes much more difficult to manage. It looks like the graphics card just came out a little bit from putting all those cables in. Again, there are a ton of cables. You can see it here. If I show you this, we just have a ton of cables going in all over the place. Each fan has 2 cables, and so there's 10 cables just for the fan. And then you see this power cable. I flipped this so it's actually sitting really nice behind this little lip. And then everything else is in there. And then this guy, you only have 2 cables to plug in to this. One goes over to the sys fan 4-pin plug. So it actually goes under here, over here. And that basically powers, it lets the motherboard power everything. So it's gonna tell the fans when to turn on and how high to turn on. And then this guy, you just plug this into the power supply. So this goes into the power supply, and it's gonna power all the fans individually. Just enough clearance to get that glass. This might actually sit up against the glass a little bit, but everything's in. So that's basically it. Let's start with the feet. Here are the feet screws. So what's nice about this case is that all of the holes on the actual case are what you mount everything straight into. So you just have to make sure that you leave a couple holes. Oh, right here, this actually, the feet actually look like they mount from the outside. So they have their own little special holes, but basically the fans, the fans mount directly to this mesh, which is interesting because I would like to 3D print a case, and I kind of just bought this so we could study the cases and learn, so that when we go to make our own case, we can learn from what they've done. Okay, so that would be the feet, allowing this thing to stand up from the table, allowing airflow. And all I did right now is make sure that these 2 fans are facing up, and making these 2 fans also make sure they're facing up. So this is either gonna suck in and push out the bottom, or it's gonna suck from the bottom and push out the top. We'll figure that out. They just have to be in the same direction. You don't want suction happening in all different directions into the box. You want some fans to be sucking air in and some fans to be pushing air out. And I also just put 2 screws in each fan, so if we need to switch anything, we can make that happen later. So basically that's it. We're done for now. We just put the glass back on the front, and now this computer is basically done. Now that we have our computer fully put together, it's time to move on to the monitors and the mounting stand. So the first thing you're gonna have to do is cut these boxes open. It looks like we have a couple of attachments here. Conventional stand attachments, which we will not be using. We have the plug and a user manual. So we have our first monitor out of the box, and we just need to repeat that again. So now we have both monitors, and I'm gonna put them face down on the table like this, so we can mount our stand, which is gonna clip onto the table. Here are the arms that actually attach onto the rear of the monitors. This part threads into here, just like so. And then I put 2 washers that I had, just normal size washers. And then this part goes on top like that. So the two washers are there, and then this part goes on top. And then the included hardware screw, MA, you can just thread that down. So you've got to get this part in here first, and then you can screw that on. So before these two pieces actually come together, we have to bolt the pole onto here. That's going to be done using these 3 bolts labeled ME. All right, so that's on there. You can see that. Now we need to connect these 2 pieces. Tighten these down. And that is the finished clamp. We have this piece here that is tight, but allows it to spin freely when we tighten this guy. And we need to attach this to the desk. So the first thing I have to do is create a location for us to mount this. I know that our 3D printer is going to take up a majority of the space over here. So I'm going to center this over here in this area. So the next thing we have to do is actually mount this on to the pole. So now that this is all mounted, we're going to actually place these brackets on the back of each monitor. It comes with these clips for cable management. So all you have to do is place this on here. And I'm going to give you a nice close-up view of what those look like. So basically they just clip on like that on all these different. They just want us to check to see how these go. But basically this little lip right here is going to attach on like that. So this thing right here just slides right in, and that little top goes onto that pin. So that's how it slides on. Keep in mind when you're placing this on the back that this little lip right here is going to be on top. And then you just take the screws that they gave you. So you'll notice that I only have 7 screws left for this, meaning one of these is missing. It's because I had to use it on here. I think that there is something just missing from this whole project, this package here that had all the hardware in it, because it looks like the washer and the screw that was supposed to mount everything together back here first just weren't included, just weren't available. So I don't really recommend getting this kit now. Hopefully you find a quality desk mount for 2 monitors and you'll have more success than I've had. But that's basically it. Once these brackets are mounted on here, all we have to do is pick up the monitor and set it on there. So just make sure everything is sturdy and then do it one at a time. Here's a close-up shot of what this looks like now. And you'll notice that this now needs to be tightened in order to make this monitor stand upright. So we just have to tighten this bolt. So there is the finished monitor setup. Just to give you a close-up view of what this looks like now. We have both our monitors here. I'll admit this mount was pretty cheap and it was one of the most affordable options. It's not exactly perfect, so I would recommend getting a higher quality desk mount. I might get one in the future. I'd also like to mount those monitors up a little bit so that we can put this computer underneath it instead of to the side. So figuring out how to get those monitors up off the table is going to be an important next project. So now we're actually over here in the workspace and I want to give you a couple more details about what's going on. I plugged both monitors in, and again, these cables just go right into my big power strip back here. This is like a shop style power strip, so I can turn these individually off. I plugged the right one in here, the left one in here, and then the computer is in the middle, and I have the computer off for now. This just plugs in. This is the power cord that came with our power supply because we have the extension. So it's going right here. So our computer is just waiting to be powered up. But before we do that, we need to get this keyboard out of the box and a mouse attached. I know it looks like there's too many wires on this table right now, but that's just because we haven't really tucked anything back. So we have our keyboard. This user manual doesn't really say where to plug the mouse and keyboard into. They just say that you have these two USB 3 ports. Now we have our computer set up. We have our monitors mounted. I plugged in HDMI cables to the back. For the purposes of this, until we get everything installed, I'm just going to use one monitor. This graphics card works is it has one default port right there, and that is a display port type right here. So the HDMI cable was over here and it wasn't receiving any signal from the computer. So the display wasn't working. So make sure that if you're going to use a GPU, that you use a display port cord cable in the first one, and then you can run that to your monitor. So it actually did work. We got a signal to the monitor, so I'm going to continue now. So the next thing we need to do is actually download and install Linux onto a flash drive. And so I've made a video explaining how to do that.
Now we're going to download Ubuntu 22.04.5 LTS Jammy Jellyfish. This is our operating system for the new computer we just built, because this version of Linux is compatible with ROS. Specifically, this is our robot building program. So this is what we need. Don't get the latest version of Ubuntu 24. I made that mistake. It's an hour download. Get this one. This is the one you want, okay? Go to releases.ubuntu.com/jammy, or you can just Google search Ubuntu 22.04 and you'll get that as the first link. The other thing you're going to have to download is this right here, raspberrypi.com, and then /software. And this guy right here is the Raspberry Pi Imager. Now, this is going to basically take that Ubuntu 22.04 file, and it's going to flash it onto your USB. So the third thing you need is to buy a USB stick that you can plug into your brand new computer, so that we can basically upload Linux Ubuntu 22.04 and then run that on the new computer we just built. So I've already done all those things, but that's what you need to do. So for Ubuntu, it's right here, desktop image. And then for the Raspberry Pi, it's right here. And I'm using Mac, but whatever you need, it's right there. Okay. So we have our three things. Right now, this is the flash drive. This is Ubuntu 22.04. This is an ISO file. This you're just going to use as a file. And then this is actually what we need to open. So if I double click this is the Raspberry Pi Imager. I believe it's going to pull up something that we need to install. Okay, so now you recognize this. We just slide this over into our applications folder. So now that that is complete, I can check it right here. That's the Raspberry Pi Imager in our applications shortcut. So I'm just going to close that. I'm going to eject that. And then I'm just going to save this over here just in case we ever need it again. That's probably going to go in the trash now that we have the application. So I'm going to open up the Imager. The first thing you have to do is, I guess, click no filtering. So that chooses every option. And then you can choose custom down here. So if you click on custom, that will allow you to click your Ubuntu 22.04. Make sure you get the right one. We just downloaded that. And then this is just whatever storage device you have. So I don't need to select this. It already brings that up. And then we can just click next. Would you like to apply OS customization settings? So we're not going to apply any OS customization settings. So we can just click no. And then we're going to get this warning basically saying we're going to clear off this whole flash drive. But luckily I only have a couple files on there and they're already on my desktop. So we can just click yes. And it looks like we just need to give the computer permissions and it's good to go. So now that that's complete, we can continue. And that was just a message letting us know that the file upload was successful. So we can just close this now. So now you'll notice that the flash drive also ejected. So it's not registering as a normal flash drive that we can pull files off of anymore. It's actually just this Ubuntu 22.04. That's the only thing that's on it right now. So eject the flash drive, and then you're going to plug that into the new computer that we just built.
Now that we have Linux on our flash drive, we can just plug it into the computer. And once we boot up the computer, it'll run Ubuntu 22.04 off of this flash drive. So now we're going to boot up the computer. Everything seems to be running fine. I'm going to turn on the monitor. The computer does this where it beeps and then it turns off temporarily and then it beeps again. So everything is looking good and we've got a picture on the monitor. So now we can actually set up Ubuntu right on here. So now we're just going to hit enter. It might be hard to see because I don't have the screen sharing set up obviously on here, but it says try or install Ubuntu. I'm just gonna hit enter. So it looks like this is starting up. It looks like Ubuntu is running. It's running directly off of that flash drive. So somehow we have to upload it onto our computer. So now that we're on the default screen, it's giving us an English preference. So if you are English speaking, you can just leave it on the default. And then this is what we're gonna have to click on is install Ubuntu. This is the right option. We're not gonna try it, we're just gonna install it. So I'm gonna click on that. Here's your keyboard layout, English and English. Gonna continue. I don't wanna connect to Wi-Fi. I don't wanna connect to the Wi-Fi network right now. I just wanna continue my setup. So we can do that later. It did recognize the Wi-Fi 6 chip that we got. Just gonna click the normal installation. This is the first option right here at the top left. So the last option is installation type. This computer currently has no detected operating system. What would you like to do? Erase disk and install Ubuntu. This will delete all your programs. So we have nothing running on this computer. So we're just gonna do that. So the next thing you have to do is select your region. Now I'm just gonna fill out this information that Ubuntu is requiring of us. So now it's just finishing the installation. I've put all of my personal information in there. And when this is finished, we'll continue the video. So the installation is set up and it's actually asking us to restart now. So I'm gonna go ahead and restart the computer. So it says here, please remove the installation medium, meaning our flash drive. So I took that out and then press enter. So that means that Ubuntu is now on our computer. It no longer needs to be on this flash drive. So now it looks like Ubuntu is ready to go. I'm just gonna click on my name and type in my password. Next thing we have to do is install ROS, which is our robot operating system, and that sits on top of Linux. So now that we have our computer, we have our whole workstation set up, and we have Ubuntu installed on the computer. So that's it for this video. We're gonna be installing ROS in the next video, which will allow us to actually start programming our robotics projects.